Welcome to Project Further. I'm April Ulmer. Project Further is a resource for the families of girls and youth soccer who have a desire to play the beautiful game at the highest of levels. I'm here in the studio today with my incredible producer, Lo. Hey, Lo.
Hey, what's
Hey.
going on? Another episode.
That's it, another one. So, Lo, what are we talking about today?
Well, listen, Linda. I'm super excited. Today we're going to get into something that if our listeners are not aware of, they will soon learn enough.
Okay.
And that is tryout season.
Oh, tryout season.
Yeah, now y'all are coming out of tryout season.
Right. So we just finished tryout season, tryouts. Some teams are still in tryout season, but
Yeah.
this is kind of the time of year where you're starting to see, tryouts taking place.
All right, well, give us a little update on how tryout season this year was for you guys.
Okay, so London just finished tryouts. It's actually about 2 weeks ago she had tryouts. Okay, so the thing about her team, of course, she's playing for the GA, so she's playing in Girls Academy. But despite making that team and playing all season with that team and doing great, got invited to an ID camp, all those kinds of things, she still has to try out. Every year, girls have to try out for the team. So you have to make the team every year, okay? So she had tryouts. It was 2 days, and it was in 2 different cities. So, her usual practices are 2 hours away in Baton Rouge, okay? That's the hub of her Girls Academy team. But tryouts this year, one day was in Baton Rouge, and then one day was in New Orleans. So there were 2 days of tryouts. We went to both, okay, because, you just can't take anything for granted.
Yeah.
You don't know who's showing up. You don't know, what kind of ballers are going to be there. You got to prepare. You got to go. And so we just, like I said, it would have been easy to say, well, we're just going to go to one of them because they know her, they've seen her play, et cetera, et cetera. Can't take anything for granted. We don't believe in that. So we went to both, and she did great. She got notification. She was offered a full-time position again, for the same club. Picked up some new players as well, which was, that's what I was saying. You don't know who's gonna show up, right? Especially as clubs sort of gain notoriety and that kind of thing. And also, I think there's recognition with girl soccer. So, it's growing every day. So you have all these girls and all these players who are kind of coming out to say, hey, I want to be a part of this team too. So that's basically what tryouts is about, is just seeing the level of play for coaches. They can see what talent is out there, who they can work with, et cetera. So nerve-wracking for sure. Even for us, even though I'm looking, I'm like, I think she did great. And I'm asking my husband, how did she look to you? Did she do it? He's just like, calm down. She did great. I was like, okay, whew, So I'm sure parents who've gone through trials before, they've been there. It's anxiety provoking. But I will say, from a parent standpoint, you got to keep that anxiety to yourself. Like you could be in the car, biting your nails, whatever, but don't let your child see you stressing out about it. I think preparation is key. We talk a lot about being intentional, about preparing for tryouts. I think you have to prepare for tryouts the same way you prepare for a game or for anything else. So
Yeah. Now, I do this all the time, so you should not be.
and throw me a curveball.
Yes. Now, I want to go back to the beginning. Everybody knows by now.
You love the beginning.
I love an origin story.
Right.
Do you remember, or can you remember, what it was like for you to be in your first tryout season? Because you just mentioned anxiety. And y'all have been in this thing enough now where
time.
if you're still getting anxiety today, I know you were a wreck.
Oh my goodness.
The first time around. So tell us a little bit about what the first tryout season was like for you.
So, my girls have been in soccer for a long time. So, for both of them, they were really young. And this is when they were like EDL. This is just rec, but they're trying out, and there were a lot of kids out there. There were a lot of kids. And, like I've said before, my girls are just kind of, they're athletes, but they had never played soccer before. And so I'm kind of watching them try out, and I'm like, I don't know how they're doing. And the coach who's out there, right, which was the coach that we wanted, right, he's out there, and I swear I didn't see him look at my kid one time, right? But apparently he saw her because she made, but I mean, there's so many kids and coaches, they know what they're looking for, and they're just kind of walking around, and you're just like, did he even see her? Like, did he say anything? And it just seems like, oh, you just never know what to expect with your first tryouts. Not even just your first tryout. Sometimes when you're, like her select tryouts, for example, when she was going from rec to select, I thought she was good.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought both my girls were good, but then you go to select and you're like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how they're going to stack up. She's never played select before. I've never seen these other girls out here before, or this coach. So I think definitely it's anxiety provoking when you're early in the process and your kids are kind of just getting going in it.
Yeah.
But also when you're changing levels. Like you're trying, because I think that, like we said in one of the earlier episodes when we were talking about the pyramid, there's some kids who just stay in rec. They're doing it for fun. They're doing it for recreation. They're doing it for exercise, and they're happy about that. They don't have any aspirations of going, further in it, and that's fine. But obviously, if your child is trying out for select, then they have some aspirations for playing at a higher level, and so it's important to them. And, I think by default, it becomes important to the parents. Like, as parents, we want to see our kids succeed. We want them to have everything they want. Sometimes they're just not ready, though. They're just not prepared, right? And so, so when they start trying out for select, it's like, how they're going to do. And then they made the team. It's like, whew, okay. Whew, all right, good, But every time they try out, every level, it's always, for me, I'm always still like, okay. I think part of it too is, as a parent, you're focusing on your child.
Yeah.
So you're picking up every little thing that they do, every little mistake that they do. A coach, number one, is looking at all the kids. So he's comparing them. He's not just looking at your child and what they can do or can't do. He's comparing kids, number one. And number two, you never know what a team or coach is looking for. You never know what they need, right? Especially with the level of play that we have, GA, you may have a coach who is looking for defenders.
Yeah.
He needs a good defender. He's got some good strikers. So your kid can tear it up, but maybe he's not really recruiting for a striker. Maybe he's looking for a defender, or vice versa. You're worried about, your kid, and he's just like, he needs 4 strikers, so you're good. But he doesn't need any defenders over here. So it's always a little bit of that, but like I said, it's important for the child to just sort of take it as it comes, prepare for it, get out there, do their best, understand that, listen, this is not the be-all and end-all. This isn't going to break you. This isn't going to change your trajectory. There are tons of stories out there about kids who had all of the talent, but they weren't committed to the process until they got cut. And then they got cut, and that was the catalyst that they needed to say, I need to be more serious about this. If I really want to be this player, I want to reach this level, I need to be more serious. So let me take this on myself. Let me be internally motivated to get better, because I thought I was going to get by on my good looks and my athleticism, and I got cut, right? So everybody's path is their own, but it doesn't change the fact that it can be nerve-wracking for sure.
All right, well, let me switch it up a little bit. And I love that origin story. I want to talk about, what should parents put in their go bag for tryout season?
Okay, that is a good question.
Yeah.
Okay. So when it comes to tryouts, the first thing that you have to do, and this doesn't just pertain to tryouts, it pertains to training, period, right? You have to prepare to train. You have to prepare to try out, right? You don't just show up and train. Like, even once you're on the team, you have to prepare for that, right? So when it comes to your hydration, when it comes to your nutrition, when it comes to getting there on time, that is preparation. When you get there and you're warming up before the coach tells you to warm up, okay? So in terms of the go bag for tryouts, first thing we do is, if you have tryouts that whole day before, I'm pushing hydration in my child. Every time I look at it, drink something. Water, also some electrolyte solutions, some are a little bit better than others, she has her favorites, we've researched them, some that, provide some good sodium and some good, carbohydrates, right? Making sure she has a good meal. And there's a section we're going to do on nutrition as well.
Yeah.
And there's something that we use called a food clock when we're talking, when we're preparing. Like, if she has tryouts at 5 p.m., We know the night before, this is what she's eating and drinking. 3 to 4 hours before, this is what she's eating and drinking. An hour before, during, and then an hour after, right? And especially if you have tryouts that are more than one day, right? You finish one, you have to be preparing for the next day. So that's really going to be important. But as far as in the bag, what kids should always have is plenty of water, and something that is an electrolyte solution with some glucose as well to give the body a little bit of energy, okay? Before, like an hour before tryouts, something that is full of sugar, gummy bears, Skittles, things like that are okay. Applesauce. I mean, a lot of times people are, well, you need healthy food. You need to eat fruit, or you need something that is going to help them to sustain their activity level during tryouts, especially if you have a child who is trying to move from one level of play to the next level of play. You have to fuel your body, because inherently moving from one level to a higher level means increased intensity. Stamina is going to be big. You can have the best feet on the planet, but if you can't last, then, what good are you to the team, right? So definitely having some form of sugar, applesauce, candy, something that they can suck down an hour before practice or training or tryouts even starts, but then also during. When they have a water break, they need to put some candy in their mouth, right? Because they're burning up their glucose. They're burning. You need to get through the second half of this. So that. And then also some potassium is good, a banana, especially before it even starts, an hour before it starts, okay? And then almost equally important is as soon as tryouts or practice is over, you need to get something into them quickly. A favorite of ours is chocolate milk. It's like the perfect thing to drink after a training, because it's got some good fat in it. It's got some good carbohydrates in it. It's like the perfect sort of post-workout, post-tryout, food. So those are just some quick and easy things you can grab. Also, things like granola bars are good. Just something that they can eat quickly is going to give them some good carbohydrates, and definitely hydration before, during, after.
Now, I didn't hear you mention a med kit.
Right.
So, like, are there times where cleats may be getting broken in that maybe we need to, none of that stuff?
Right. Well, that goes to preparation, right? Like I said, you prepare for tryouts. You prepare for practice. So I'm never going to have a brand new pair of cleats that my kid is going to wear to tryouts. If they have a pair of cleats that they're wearing, they know whether or not those pair of cleats give them blisters or not. So they need to have their moleskin on. They need to have their Band-Aids in the right places. You got to be ready. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So things like that. So we don't usually travel with a med kit. If my daughter, like I said, if she's struggling with something because she does have, a cut or something like that, then I'm going to sort of pack accordingly based on the situation. But in terms of stuff like that, I don't tend to have that. And also because they'll have trainers on site depending on the level of play, at all of our games, a lot of our practice, you have trainers in the area. So if there's something that you need, whether it's some KT tape or you need some icy hot or something, then somebody will have it usually. And parents usually will have things like that too if you need it.
So let me ask you this then. Mm-hmm. What do you feel like give me two items that most people don't realize how important they could be to the success of your child during tryout season?
Oh gosh.
Couple items. Come on.
2 items, like physical items.
It could be
or...
you tell me. Two items that, could make or break a good tryout.
Okay. 2 items. I will tell you, in terms of items that we value.
Yeah.
For tryouts and also otherwise, right? Number 1, equipment, right? I think that sometimes equipment gets undervalued, especially if you're not used to a higher level of play. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
Like cleats aren't just cleats. You know what I'm saying? So understanding, getting a good pair of cleats that are good and broken in, making sure that if your child has a favorite type of cleat that they do well with. And we tend to use, higher level cleats because, you can have a certain brand and then you have the ones that are for academy or the one, and then you have the higher level ones. So whatever you sort of your family can do to get the best equipment, within reason, what I'm saying? I think that's important because there's a whole science behind that. You know what I'm saying? As far as what your child performs best in. So leading up to tryouts, you need to be intentional about thinking about that. Like, okay, how are you with your equipment? Do you have your favorite cleats? Tryouts are in a month.
Yeah.
Let me see your cleats that you love. Oh no, these don't have any studs on them. We got to get you some today, and we need you in the yard or in at the pitch, the local pitch, breaking them in, taking some shots on goal, doing that thing. So making sure that you plan for equipment, I think, is important, especially like your cleats. The other thing, I think we just touched on it.
Yeah.
Just, nutrition. Nutrition is one of those things that in all the years of rec, select, no one ever told us how to eat.
Yeah.
No one ever told us about the timing of food and drink. Just drink plenty of water. I'm like, yeah, it's 100 degrees. It's South Mississippi. We're good. We got that,
Yeah.
But the other aspects of it, not just eating, but the timing of eating based on what your body's going to need throughout this process. So I think those are the two biggest things. Everything else you can be flexible about. Like we don't have a favorite shirt or favorite jersey, that gives us superpowers. We don't have, but making sure that their child is fueled up before, during, and after, and making sure that you invest in some good equipment, because how we prepare is how we play, right?
Yeah, I like that. And I'll let's do this because I do like the technical side, and those are great tips. As a soccer mom, what is something special you do to try to eliminate anxiety within your kid to have a good tryout? Like, have you found anything like as a mom that you can do that maybe London or your oldest loves that maybe you put in their soccer bag, or it's like something like breakfast that may be a little inspirational quote? Like, what are some things that you find yourself doing to help, calm them down?
Calm it down. I found that with my particular child, and like you hear me talk about the temperament of the child a lot.
Yeah.
I have two girls. They're only 2.5 years apart, and they are worlds apart in terms of their personalities. Like you can't approach one the way you do the other, right?
Yeah.
So I think meeting their child where they are in terms of kind of their love language, right? Like for Evan, my oldest, her love language is physical touch. I physically have to throw my arms around her, and that's all she needs. I hold space for her. If I sit there next to her and I'm touching her, that's all she needs. London is like, she doesn't really want me touching her, right? So I can't be hugging on her. I'll stress her out, right? But what she likes is words of affirmation. That's the kid she is. So, and she's also a sugar bug. She gets that honest from my husband. She loves sweets, right? So what I do is I find something that I don't let her have regularly, like her favorite candy or favorite little snack, and I'll put that in her bag. I'll get that for her, and I won't just hide in her bag. I'll make sure she knows I got this for you, right? So she knows it wasn't by accident. It wasn't like left over from last time. I was being intentional, and I'm saying, hey, I got this for you, and leave it there, right? Because that way we're kind of both getting what we want. Like I'm making sure she's fueled up, she's got what she needs, and she feels special because I didn't just choose some random gummy bears when she hates them. I got this for you. So that's what I do. The other thing about London is London doesn't really want to talk a lot about it. She just gets out there and she does it and she performs. And if she has any level of anxiety, she doesn't really show that. What stresses her out is when I'm sort of harping on things, right? So when I give her that little candy, I just say, I got this for you. Now, don't eat it today, put it in your soccer bag for tomorrow and leave it there. Don't make a big deal about it. Like, hey, this is for your tryouts because you're going to need it. And I know you're going to do great. Just here you go, right? And she understands, right? So that's something I do. The other thing with this particular child that I do is I talk about the fun of it.
Yeah.
Right. I'm like, are you excited? It's going to be fun, right? And she's like, yeah. It's like, okay, anything you need? No, I'm good. Okay. And leave it.
Yeah.
Leave it. Because she is this is work. This is like her job, right? It's a labor of love, like we always talk about. It is child driven. Like everything that we do is based on what London says she wants to do, and not only what she says she wants to do, what she shows us, because she puts in the work, consistently without complaint. And she loves it. So we don't have to harp on that. This is like I'm putting in my work. I'm doing my thing, right? And she's a soccer player. I don't know what it's like to be out there, right?
Right.
So not sort of harassing her about it, just saying, hey, excited about seeing you play today, all right? Those things really work best with her. And then afterwards saying, I love watching you play. That was so fun.
That's good.
That was so fun. And leaving it. If there is something that she brings up that she's frustrated about, because there have been games where she's frustrated, like we should have won that, because she's a competitor, right? She's a competitor.
At the core.
Oh, at the core. You know, that's what drives her. She's a competitor. So if she gets in the car, she's like, we should have won that game, and da-da-da-da-da-da. And then sometimes we just talk about it. I'm like, okay, well, but you played hard. You did great. Sometimes we win, sometimes we don't. What do you feel like you wish would have gone differently? Not what would you have done differently?
Yeah.
Or what should Sally have done differently? Right? We never deflect and we never put blame on other people. What would you, and I don't blame her either. Like there are going to be games when and tryouts where it just didn't go great, right? But you want to be, what should you have done differently? We don't do that. We're like, okay, well, what do you wish had gone differently? Like, what did we learn from this? Like, what next time? What do you think we should think about maybe doing? That kind of thing. And so that allows her to vent without escalating the situation. So even with tryouts, you'll have kids who, depending on how they're built, they'll be really nervous and they may talk to you about it and then do a lot of listening and just let them vent and encourage them, right? And then also, especially if it's a child that's really trying something new, and as a parent, you really aren't sure if they're going to make it or not, if they're going to make the team, then preempt that by saying, listen, you did great. I'm so proud of you for having the courage to try it, right? I think you did great. The coaches are looking for what they're looking for. We'll know soon whether, how it went. But either way it goes, you should be proud of yourself because you had the courage to get out there and try it. And no matter what, we're going to learn from the situation and we're going to build on it and we're going to prepare, right? We're going to prepare so no matter what happens, we're going to learn from this, right?
Yeah.
And so that way you lay the groundwork, because I think that part of when kids are anxious, part of it is they're anxious if they really, really want something and they're afraid of failing. But they're also sometimes afraid of failing us, especially when you have high expectations of them. Like in our kids, with our kids, we have high expectations. Like if you heard me say before, we believe anything worth doing is worth doing well. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be perfect at it. What we mean is you have to give your full effort.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you can't fail at it. And so sometimes kids will interpret that as, well, Mom was so, she was so wanting me to make this team and I didn't make the team and I know she's disappointed. I could see it. And you're just thinking like, you're more disappointed for your child, right? Like you're just like, I'm not playing soccer. I hate it for them because they really want it. But I think that communication and being intentional about the way you communicate with your child is important, right? Because it's things, tryouts are they're just tryouts, right?
Right.
But for some kids, they can either be the catalyst that propels them further, or they can be sometimes the thing that holds them back. Like, I don't ever want to be disappointed like that again. I don't ever want to disappoint my family like that again. I don't want to ever be embarrassed because all these kids were so much better than me. I've had, parents who will say, friends of ours, it's like their child was maybe trying out for a higher level team and they were in the bathroom crying before tryouts. And I'm like, it should never be that, Your coach isn't expecting you to be perfect. They know if you're trying out for a higher level team than you've been on before, if you're trying out for GA, if you're trying out for select, but you've never done it before, the coaches know who the players are. They know the girls who've been in the club already. So if you are coming to tryouts, most of the time, especially as you're younger, now, as you get older, it becomes progressively a little bit more difficult to break into those clubs because you've had all these years of development, right? But, and we should talk about that in a second too, why it's important to kind of choose when you're going to, when you're going to try out maybe for a club that's on a different level. But when you're coming to something like that, I tell all my friends and their kids, they aren't expecting you to be perfect. They want to know what your athletic ability is. They want to know that you have the basics. They are looking at your attitude and your temperament. Are you going to work hard? Are you committed to this? And then they can decide to take you and nurture you and cultivate your natural abilities, right? They don't want you to be perfect.
Yeah.
Everybody has to get coached up. My daughter had to get coached up, with the levels that she's trying to go to. When she goes and she trains with this team or that team, she's doing that because she's trying to continue to develop. So they don't expect you to be perfect. It shouldn't be that anxiety provoking, right?
Yeah. And I love that. Great information. And we're about to go into one of my favorite segments of our show. I love to get some tips from you.
Right. Tryout tips.
You got some tryout tips for us?
I do. So, one of the first things, and this is sort of in talking to parents sometimes, and, because once again, with where we live, us deciding to go 2 hours away, and not that there aren't good opportunities here for kids where that's their aspiration, right? And these tips, they can really pertain to anybody, no matter what they're doing, whether they are trying out for the same club, the same same team, whether they are going to another club or they're trying to go to a different team or they're trying to go to a different level of play, right? Yeah. Number one, if you have tryouts at a certain time, and let's say they say check-in, if tryouts are at 1 and check-in is at 12:30, get there at 11:30. Get there an hour before if you can, or close to that, okay? Because number one, obviously, it increases the likelihood that you're not going to be late, especially if you don't know where you're going, okay? Yeah. Number two, it gives your child a chance to kind of decompress. Seeing the lay of the land, you see the other kids, you do all that, you have that time. The other reason why it's important is because you have to prepare for tryouts. You have to prepare for training. You don't just show up. Even when you're on a team, you don't just show up to practice. You show up, you prepare to practice, right? You're out there, you're moving around, you're juggling, you're doing all those things to get yourself ready. So you really want to show that initiative. You got there plenty early to alleviate the stress of it and some of that anxiety of getting there, rushing and things like that. But also because it shows initiative to the coaches, especially if there are people who don't know you, okay? The other thing is, if you have tryouts that are for multiple days, go to every single one that you can make. Like I said, even with my daughter, this is her 3rd season with GA, and she's an amazing player. I don't think anybody would refute that. But she went to both tryouts. Because number one, like I said, you don't know who's showing up to take your position. Number two, I think it shows a measure of respect to the coaches and to the club. You don't want to take anything for granted. You don't want to give the impression, well, I'm so good that I only have to come to one. As a matter of showing effort, go to every day that they have. Yeah. If you can't, then it's important to communicate to the coach. Even if you know the coach, you've played for him before, and you know it's going to be fine. Communicate to the coach. Hey, coach, I know we have tryouts again on Sunday. I'm not going to be able to make it because we have X, Y, or Z. If you'd like, I can come and train for you another day if you'd like for me to, or if that's a possibility, right? Yeah. If you don't know a coach, get the information and say, hey, coach, my name is so-and-so. I'm trying out for the 2010 girls black team. I was at practice on last Thursday. I'm not going to be able to make it on Sunday because of a family commitment. Is there a way for me to come and show for you on another day? Even if that's just practicing. Most of the time, coaches will be open to that. Because the reason why they have tryouts more than one day is because, especially when you're trying to put together a higher level team, being able to see a child, once for an hour and a half or 2 hours is just not enough. You have to see them multiple times. Our club had 2-day tryouts. Some of the bigger clubs, the more powerful clubs, like in Texas, for example, one of them has tryouts for 2 weeks. 2 weeks. 4 days a week for 2 weeks. One of them has tryouts for a month. A month. So it's serious. People take it seriously.
That is serious.
It is serious. And so make all the dates that you can, and if you can't, be sure to communicate, right? The other thing is always thank the coach for the opportunity, especially if you haven't met the coach, or even if you have met the coach, but what you're trying to do is you're trying to break into a new team, a new club, a higher level opportunity. The child should always walk up to the coach after training and shake his hand or her hand, look him in the eye and say, "Thank you for the opportunity, coach. I really enjoyed it." That stands out in a coach's mind. They're like, wow, that's impressive, especially for young kids, right? So that's a big deal. So always do that. Don't harass the coaches about tryouts and about the results. Okay.
I feel like this is a hard. This may be a hard one.
It can be hard. You'll hear when everybody hears. Okay. I've had friends of mine who are coaches. They're like, it is crazy this time of year.
Yeah.
I have parents calling me, emailing me 12, 15 times. It is crazy. They're stressed out. Parents are stressed out. The kids are stressed out. It's stressful for everybody. But when you have a coach that is trying to make a decision that they're taking seriously, it's not going to help your cause to harass them about, when are we going to hear? Hey, what you're going to hear? They're going to put the roster together.
Don't bribe them.
Don't thank them for the opportunity. Prepare your child. Let your child do their best.
Yeah.
Thank them for the opportunity. And then just wait to hear. Okay. And then sometimes parents will be like, well, what if we don't make the club? What if we don't make the team? Okay. It happens, right? The biggest thing is you don't want to burn bridges. You don't want to burn bridges. And this goes kind of both ways. I've seen it where kids don't make a team.
Yeah.
And then the parents will lob a grenade on the whole process. They'll like fire off an email or do. And coaching, that's a small community. Wow. That's a small community. And I've had multiple coaches tell me, it's like, listen, we call.
Yeah.
You could be moving states and you're trying out for a club and we're interested in this player, but we're going to call your old coach. We'll be like, tell me about this kid. Tell me about this family, right? Because nobody wants to bring that toxicity into a club. You can be the most talented kid to ever lace up a pair of cleats. But if you're bringing toxicity to a club, that's going to be counterproductive, right? So you don't want to burn bridges if you don't make it. I've seen kids walk away from one opportunity for a better opportunity and burn that bridge and not thank that coach for what they have brought to the table thus far. It may not be where you want to land. It may not be where you want to be, but it never hurts to kind of to say thank you, right? And to say, listen, I know maybe it didn't work out the way we expected, but we appreciate the time and the effort that you've put into training these kids, because it is time and effort. No matter what you think about a coach or a club or a team, it's time and it is effort away from their families and their kids, right? So you don't want to burn bridges even on your ascent either, right? Yeah. And so that's important. You need to treat it with a measure of respect and that coach with a measure of respect that they deserve, right?
But I also feel, let me say this. I also feel like you mentioned, we talked about this in an early episode where sometimes where we think our kid is may not be the development of where that club may be.
Right.
They may be weak in areas where you, by putting them on the team, could hurt their progression and their advancement. So I love that you are bringing that tip out, because a lot of times coaches can see something that we have missed, but they, can give you guidance and to correct it. And by the next year, it's a different story.
Absolutely. And that brings us to sort of the next point I was going to make about not burning bridges. The best thing that you can do for your child, if you don't make a team, is to circle back to that coach and say, Coach, as a parent, and if you're an older child, if you're a teenager, you can do it yourself. But to circle back to that coach and say, Coach, thank you so much for the opportunity. Can you please tell me some things that I might work on to become a better player? And that speaks volumes, because like in the episode with Q, if you remember, he told me that before he had even trained London, he had come out and watched her play some games. And I never knew that.
Yeah.
Right. And then after he started to train her, before he told me that she wasn't where she needed to be developmentally to go to the next level,
Yeah.
he had to get to know her as a player. He had to figure out, is she a kid who is willing to put in the work? Is she a kid who is willing to do what it took to get better? Or is she a complainer? Is she a whiner? Is she going to be wanting to quit? Is she dragging around? What's her body language like? Does she have a bad attitude? So he did all that before he came to me and said, okay, this is what we got.
Yeah.
And this is what we need to do to get her there. Because he knew that she was a kid who was willing to put in the work. So the way that you can exhibit that to a coach is if you don't have the outcome that you want. And this goes for really any sport or anything that you're trying to accomplish, right? Whether that's in sports or in life. Sometimes things don't go the way you want. And sometimes it can be a blessing in disguise. There could be sort of a better opportunity around the corner. But what you want to do is you want to go back and say, okay, well, help me get better.
Yeah.
What can I do to be that player? What can I do to improve and advance? And sometimes you'd be surprised because not only will a coach give you tips, they may say, but you know what? You're welcome to come out and train with us anytime you want to. You know what? I'm going to put you in touch with a good friend of mine who is going to help you with that, okay, with what I told you need to work on. Right? It's all about making connections and all about opening doors. Because like we said, soccer is, when it comes to coaches, it's a small community, right? And, it can either help you or hurt you as you try to move on to the next level.
Man, what an amazing episode today. Listen, I know you guys are writing down notes. I know y'all are taking these tips. Because the objective always is for our community to grow, for you to position your kid in the best position possible, the best pathway possible to a successful career in soccer. And I love these breakdowns. Y'all don't forget to go back and rewind. Take these notes. These are real-time experiences that y'all are getting from Dr. Omer and her family, but also share it with someone. Sharing is caring. There's very little information in this part of the journey, which is why we're taking time to do this. And, we don't want to be selfish. We want to make sure we're sharing that. So make sure you subscribe, like, and share. And invite somebody in the community. If you have a tip that we missed today, don't be afraid to put it in the comments. Let somebody know your experience and journey. And Doc, you want to take us out?
Absolutely. Don't forget to keep pushing, keep striving, always further.
Always further.
Till next time.
Till next time.